Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jesus here with the Van Bros, and today I have a deck profile on a deck that I've been a little interested in ever since Divine's set 6 dropped. You can tell by the sleeves and by the thumbnail that the deck we're going to be talking about is PBO. So let's just go right ahead and start the deck profile. So ride line, obviously, I'm sorry for bumping. We have full bow, blaster, javelin, dark, and PBO. So this is a Keter deck. It's an encounter deck with no limitations like the stride deck sets. So why am I running javelin? As opposed to the grade 1 that a lot of people are running in Resile. I'll try to pop it up right here. I did play a few games with that starter, but almost all of those games it couldn't proc the skill because it didn't have 3 different grades in hand to actually look at the top and call something out. This is very rare that it will not go off because I only run, spoiler alert, 1 order in the deck. And in reality, there's like a few, maybe like 3 targets in the deck that I do not want to call off of this card. And one of those I run at 3, that's for the Persona Ride. And the other 2 are just my 1 order and the Over Trigger. So honestly, so far, this card has been doing me a lot in terms of like actually calling out pieces that help me out in the long run and making it easier to proc Blaster Dark's Twin Drive on turn 2. So that's why I like Javelin. Also, it's SP. It's not worth that much, but it's an SP, so I got to do the whole ride line like my boy Ren here. So that is essentially the ride line. PBO. PBO is a cool card, mainly because of what he does. He calls Blaster Dark from Solar Drop and gives himself and Blaster Dark 10k for the cost of retiring 2 rear guards. And if you have the original Phantom Blaster Dragon in the soul, he gains a critical, and that's always. This card is very cool, and it's really strong. The only thing kind of holding this card back is I think it's a bit too fair. And I don't mind that at all. This card needs your opponent to be at grade 3, so he can't really go off like on your first grade 3 turn. But even then, you're still swinging for 4, and you can get him to have a crit. So that's actually like, it's not too bad. But yeah, the 10k happens when both people are at grade 3. So a couple points docked, but it's still a very solid card. Blaster Dark will come up later, but his rear guard skill matters a lot here, where he gains 5k if a unit was retired, or if one of your rear guards was retired during that turn. Mainly because of the shenanigans you get up to later on in the deck. So I'll leave those 2 there, put these to the side. So for my deck profiles, I always like to start off with a higher grade. So that's what I will do. To the shock of nobody, we run 3 copies of the Persona Ride. So you have your 1 in the ride line and 3 copies of the Persona Ride. That is pretty normal for a standard deck unless you're insane. Then I run 4 copies of the worst card in the deck, which is PBD. I need to see this card to put it into the soul, and so you have to run it at 4. It's a shame, it really is. If there was a card that literally said put a card from your deck into the soul, I mean, not only this deck, but any deck would love to have that card. But yeah, you have to run this card at 4, mainly because you need to see it. And then after you get 1 in the soul, this kind of just becomes discard fodder or another rear guard to call to swing with. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't even use him as a backup Vanguard. Obviously you don't need that because you just ride into PBO and just do that. But this card is literally just, he's okay. He's just there to make sure this thing has a crit. because this is a Shadow Paladin deck. It's Keter, but in all essence, it's Shadow Paladin. Of course, we have to run the best card that came out last year. That is Allied, but this card is really, really good. We run 4 copies of Dara. She's really good because on place you counterblast 1 if you have a Vanguard with Undercover or only Shadow Paladin in its clan. Look at the top 5 cards, and you can add an Undercover card or a Shadow Paladin to your hand and shuffle the deck. This is really good because she searches your Persona Ride, she searches your Phantom Blaster Dragons, she searches your domains because we run those, she searches your S-Ross because they're PGs, what were they thinking. There's one card in this deck that she doesn't search. Well, there's multiple, but there's one card that I really wish that she was able to search, but we'll get to her later. Another cool thing about her is that you can Soul Blast a card when she attacks a grade 3 or greater unit. So if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3, to Soul Blast a card to get 10k. This is really good because it makes it so that, like, on your Persona Ride turns, this card can swing for at least 30 if you're not boosting it, and then you can stack triggers on top of it with the amount of drive checks that you do to make it even more scary. So this card's really good. I really like it. You got to run it at 4. I wasn't running it at 4 and I was stupid, so you run it at 4. If you don't, you'll be like me. Then we run 4 copies of a card that every Shadow Paladin player knows. Skull Witch Name. Now, unlike the one from V series and very similar to the one from the OG series, she's a grade 2. She's got 5k power, and then if you have a Blaster Vanguard, so Blaster Dark, Phantom Blaster Dragon, Phantom Blaster Overlord, she gains 5k. And then when she's placed on rear, if you have an only Vanguard that's only Shadow Paladin, counterblast 1, put a card from your hand into the soul to draw 2. So this card is crazy because I've had games where Javelin will call this card, and I like to take damage early on in the game. Sometimes, like, I've had games where I'll be at 2 damage because my opponent got lucky with a trigger. And sometimes I'll call this with Javelin, and I'll just do this skill instead of Blaster Darks. The main reason is because you just want to make sure this piece of shit gets in the soul. And since you're already drawing 2 cards, this twin drive doesn't really mean shit. So this gets your game moving way faster than this thing in most cases. So running at 4, it's a really solid card, and it gets this dumb lizard into the soul. Then, because this video wouldn't exist if this card didn't exist, we run 4 copies of Cleodna, or whatever this thing's called. I hate how they give these things just, like, the weirdest names ever. But this card is insane. I love this card. And a little fun fact, I thought it was a grade 1 for the longest time. Until I started playing the deck and I realized it's a grade 2. But she's really good because her continuous, if she would be retired by a Vanguard with Blaster in its name, she's regarded as 2. So she already is 1 card to pay this cost for this guy's skill. The other card, or the other skill that she has, the auto skill, is when she's retired, specifically by the ability of her Blaster Vanguard, if your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3. So again, it's a bit too fair, but I mean, balancing. You choose a Blaster Dark on your rear circle, which you will call off of PBO skill, and he gains the red text that once per turn when he attacks, discard a card from hand, and this unit performs drive checks until the end of that battle, and then at the end of that battle, retire him. And he has that until the end of the turn. So, the reason why Blaster Dark's rearguard skill to gain 5k matters is because when you call him off of PBO skill, either from soul or from drop, you can discard a card when he swings after doing his on-play skill to counterblast retire, and you retire one of yours, your opponent retires one of theirs, he gains twin drive. Because of this card, will be able to perform a drive check on the rearguard circle. So you'll, on one turn, you'll be able to perform 4 drives on one turn. The 5k he gains on top of it means that when PBO calls him, he'll be a plus 15. So he'll be 25. Is that a magic number? Not really, but it's still pretty good, and 5k may make a difference. Another card that you want to have is 4 copies of Emmeline. Emmeline's just a solid card because not only on place for Soul Blast, she can search out the original PBD and PBO. She also gains 5k when she sees your blaster's attack. So normally she'll be already at plus 10k, but sometimes you could have like Phantom Blaster as one of these swings. So you could do swing 1, swing 2, call this over that, swing 3, so she'll be a plus 15. So there's times that she could be a plus 15, but mainly she'll be a plus 10. But she's kind of like your beater because you can just stack triggers on her. Then we have 4 copies of Esros as her PG. Now I don't run an Elementaria, not because I want to be able to search a PG all the time with the Undercover Girl, but because I just don't want to move it. Also, it's also nice to be able to search all my PGs. I've had games where I have 3 or 4 in hand most of the time, so it's very nice to have. Against stride decks, it does hurt. Like if I go against, what's it called, Drag Strider, I'm cooked. But what can you do? I mean, you're not winning games against Lord with this deck. Then we run 4 copies of Battle Sister Coco. This card is crazy. This is perfect support. Honestly, this card is like, I'm shocked that Bushiroad was able to print this card out. So what she does is if you have a Vanguard with only 1 clan and no G-Zone, so this is Stride deck set Hatred, she gains all the following skills. When placed, you put a card from hand into soul, so very similar to the main. You look at the top 2 cards, you choose one from among them to put into your hand and the rest to the top of the deck or into the soul. If you put a card into the soul, this unit gains 5k until the end of the turn. So this card is really good, especially when called by Blaster Javelin, because if you already have PBD in the hand, you call this with Javelin, put PBD in the hand from the hand into the soul. Look at the top 2. You could be adding a PG, you could be adding more pieces, and then you could look at another card and it's a trigger. So you can stack the trigger for Flash or Dark to get a guaranteed one. So this card is just really good. And this one barely procs because she's usually retired before this happens, but if your opponent's grade 3 Vanguard or greater drive checks or damage checks a trigger unit, she gains 10k power and 10k shield. So she is an 18k booster, potentially 23k booster, or a 15k shield if they already check the trigger. But I'll be honest, that doesn't proc usually because she's usually dead, unfortunately. But what can you do? That's what the deck does. But yeah, this card is really solid. When Blaster Blade the Vanguard comes out, expect an MLB deck profile because that shit is crazy. And maybe a fight video between the 2 decks. MLB is gonna win. To round up the main, the normal units, I run 2 copies of Bradyarch. I think this card's solid because usually I'll discard this for my ride, to ride up. And the reason why I run this is because when Blaster Dark swings, you need to discard a card. So when a card is discarded from hand during my turn, I can Energy Blast 3, remove him. I choose the discarded card and I put it back to hand. So I'm not really losing anything, especially if I'm discarding this during my write-up. Another cool thing is that his on-play skill is not too bad because you can look at the top card of the deck, put it to the top of the bottom, and he gains 2k. Let's see here. I barely do that skill. I literally just discard it. He is discard fodder for me. But those are the normal units of the deck. I run 1 order, and that is Radiance Caliburn. I kind of run through some counterblasts because of the main, the Undercover Girl, and Blaster Dark, but not too much where I need to always be countercharging. And this card's also good because it allows you to draw 2. So it serves 2 purposes. You could honestly switch it out for a Twin Cast or Bracing Angel Ladder, especially now that Shiranui is becoming even more relevant. So This could be switched out for pretty much any Regalis piece. I just like to use this one. Heck, you can run a third copy of this thing, or just, you know, anything cool that, I don't know, you want to put in the deck. I don't care. For triggers, I run the purple OT just to be able to heal, call something with giving it 10k. It's nice. I don't run the red OT because usually, if anything, I might just be down to just PBO and Blaster Dark, and this thing's gonna die, so red OT wouldn't work. I could do blue OT with the amount of drive checks I do. Blue OT being checked has a high probability, so that's not bad. The other OTs are okay, but I just like purple because it lets me heal, and I think that's pretty important, especially with the fact that this deck is kind of a glass cannon, really. It doesn't really leave you with much on your end of the field, and then you always have to replenish a board, so you kind of want to be able to heal out and guard a little less. Because there's a lot of pieces that you need to have in hand, I run 3 copies of draw triggers. I run the one that's a 10k shield, because any other draw kind of sucks. So yeah, I run 3 draws because I need to see my pieces, and Marco kind of brainwashed me into thinking draws were good. So in this deck, they're really good. Fronts wouldn't really make sense because you're retiring a lot, so not really the best cards to have. Then obviously, because it's standard, we're not allowed to run more than 8 crits. I run 4, or I run 8 vanilla crits. You really don't have to worry about the types of crits that you run, because I mean, you can call the crit that goes into soul to get 5k, but really I keep the triggers in hand, or I call them to retire them, so you really don't need the effect triggers unless it's the draws. And then 4 heals, and yeah, that is the deck. It's been really fun playing it. You can definitely tell that this deck does need a lot of love. If you saw that Phantom Blaster, or no, not Phantom Blaster, that Dragonic Overlord promo, give PBD the same thing. I'm just saying, give PBD the same thing. They already got blasters for, they have Blaster with the Vanguard from MLB. They have this promo for Dragonic Overlord. Give PBO some love, or give us a new blaster. Gust Blaster would be cool. I don't want to see Raging Form in standard anytime soon. I think I'm a little sick of that little guy, but hey, listen, I'm all for any new promo that could help this deck become really good. Or fuck it, don't make it a promo, just put it in a set or whatever. Just do something. Give us a card that puts this thing into the soul. That would be everything. Or the exact same promo that they gave Dragonic Overlord, give it to PBO, and boom, this deck is really good. Not tier 1, but it's good. I'm talking for too much, so I'm just going to leave it here. But guys, thanks for watching, and I'm going to have some discussion videos up soon. I want to look at some things regarding Cardfight Vanguard as a game. It's mainly looking into mechanics and stuff. So thanks for watching.